The details of the manifestations of the human psyche of individuals existing separately as well as in groups. Well now, for the elucidation of the state and manifestations of the psyche of large groups, Russia would perhaps be very suitable for me, since, as I have understood during our talks, the disease of the passion for alcohol is spread there in your country among almost the entire population, thanks to which I shall the more often have the possibility of carrying out my experiments on various types, each separately as well as in a mass. After this talk with the important Russian being, I soon got ready, and several days after left Egypt together with him. 2 weeks later, we were already in the chief place of existence of this large community in the town at that time still called St. Petersburg. After we arrived there, my new acquaintance immediately gave himself up to his own affairs, which had very greatly accumulated during his long absence. By that time, among other things, there had already been finished there the construction of that large building which was destined by the trusteeship to this aim of struggling against alcoholism. And my new acquaintance immediately began to apply himself to the organization and preparation of all that was necessary for what they call there the inauguration of that building and the starting of the activities connecting with it. I began, however, during that time to go about everywhere as is usual for me, and to frequent the beings of this city, belonging to various what are called their classes, in order to become acquainted with the characteristic particularities of their manners and customs. Well, it was then that I constated, among other things, that in the presences of the beings belonging to just this contemporary community, their, as it is called, ego-individuality began during the recent centuries to form itself particularly sharply dual. After I had constated this and began specially to investigate this question there, I finally elucidated that this dual individuality obtained in their common presences, chiefly owing to a non-correspondence between what is called the tempo of the place of their arising and existence, and the form of their being mentation. In my opinion, my boy, you will very well understand this particularly sharp duality of the beings of this large community if I repeat to you word for word the opinion about them of our esteemed Mullah Nasruddin, which he gave me personally. It is necessary for me to tell you that during the second half of this last sojourn of mine among your favorites, I happened more than once to meet that terrestrial, uniquely wise Mullah Nasruddin, and to have personal exchange of opinion with him on various, as it is said there, life questions. This personal meeting of mine with him, in the course of which he, with a wise saying of his, defined the real essence of the beings of that large community there, took place on one of the parts of the surface of your planet called Persia, in the locality named Ispahan, where I happened to be for my investigations concerning the most saintly activities of Ashiata Shiamash, and also for clearing up on the spot that question I needed of just how there arose for the first time the form of their so-called politeness, now everywhere existing there and also maleficent for them. Even before my arrival in Ispahan, I already knew that the esteemed Mullah Nasruddin had left for the town Talyanikum to stay with the stepson of the eldest daughter of his godfather. After I had arrived in this latter town, I immediately sought him out, and the whole time I was there, often visited him. And sitting on the roof, as was the custom in this country, we would chat together about every kind of what are called their subtle philosophic questions. Once, on the second or third day, apparently after my arrival there, on going to him in the morning, my eye was struck by an unusual movement in the streets. Everywhere there were being cleaned, swept, and hung out what are called carpets, shawls, flags, and so on. I thought, evidently one of the two celebrated annual festivals of the beings of this community is beginning. On ascending to the roof, and having exchanged the usual greetings with our dear, most eminent and wise Mullah Nasruddin, I asked, pointing with my hand to what was happening in the street, what it was all about. Over his face spread his customary benevolent and, as always, enchanting grimace, which nevertheless had a slight shade of contempt. And he intended to say something, but at that moment there resounded in the street below the shouts of the town criers and the clattering of many horses. Then our wise mullah, without uttering a word, got up heavily, and having taken me by the sleeve, led me to the edge of the roof, and then, winking cunningly at me with his left eye, he turned my attention to a big cavalcade which was rapidly galloping past, and which consisted, as I later found out, chiefly of beings who are called Cossacks, belonging to that same large community there, Russia. In the center of this large cavalcade, there rolled by what is called a Russian phaeton, harnessed with 4 horses, driven by an unusually fat and imposing-looking coachman. This imposing exterior, also quite Russian in manner, was due to the pads put in corresponding parts under his clothes. In this phaeton sat 2 beings, one of the type of that country, Persia, and the other a typical what is called Russian general. When the said cavalcade had moved off a long way, Mullah, first of all uttering his favorite saying, "So and so and so must be, do not do what must not be," and having also uttered his favorite exclamation, somewhat resembling "Zrt," he returned to his place and suggested to me that I should do the same. Then, having arranged the still smoldering charcoal on his kalyan, he sighed deeply and pronounced the following tirade, which, as always, was not immediately understandable. Just now, in the company of a large number of well-bred turkeys, a crow of this country passed by, who, although one of the chiefs and of high rank, was yet nevertheless rumpled and badly molting. During recent times, I don't know why, high-rank crows of this country no longer in general take a single step without these well-bred turkeys. They evidently do this in the hope that maybe, perhaps, the pitiable remains of the feathers would, owing to their being constantly within the powerful radiations of these turkeys, become a little stronger and cease to fall out. Although I understood positively nothing about what he had just said, yet already well knowing his habit of expressing himself first of all allegorically, I was not at all surprised, and did not question him, but patiently waited his further explanations. And indeed, when, after he had pronounced the tirade and had thoroughly finished hubble-bubbling the water of his kalyan, he, while giving in his subsequent speech with the subtle venom which is proper to him, a definition of the whole presence and general essence of the beings of the contemporary community Persia, explained to me that he compared the beings of this same community Persia to the birds crows, while the beings